It's the United States Diplomacy Center, and that is a very deliberate choice. We didn't want it to be just a museum. It is both a museum and an education center. We believe strongly that education is an important part of our mission.
We knew that there were over 400 museums, according to the American Alliance of Museums, covering military affairs. And it just seemed to us to be a terrible gap in the United States. So that it's time that diplomacy's role in protecting our security and making the United States a more prosperous place had some recognition. People knew more about it. So it's very near to the Lincoln Memorial, it's near to the Vietnam War Memorial, and so tourists who flock to this city can easily walk up a block and see what diplomacy is all about.
The mission of the Diplomacy Center is to explain to the public the importance of American diplomacy. They come to Washington, they go to the Capitol, they go to the White House, but they don't know about the Department of State and what it does. They don't know about American diplomacy. We did a survey many years ago. Over half could not identify the Department of State, what it did, and over half could not identify the Secretary of State. And at that time, it was Colin Powell, a very well-known individual.
We've had a lot of help from secretaries of state. All the former secretaries of state are on our honorary board. We have Hillary Clinton and James Baker are honorary chairs of our organization. We had the groundbreaking for our museum. 5 former secretaries of state plus John Kerry all participated in this affair and all spoke eloquently about diplomacy and what it means to the country. I think this is a beginning of an awareness that has not been available on this major subject.
We have encountered a number of very fascinating challenges as we've worked on this museum. I think very fascinating and beneficial delay was caused by our acceptance of a huge piece of the Berlin Wall. This piece of the Berlin Wall is really important historically. It's called the signature piece. And it has the signatures of many of the world leaders and the individuals who were actually instrumental in bringing down the Berlin Wall. It is 13.5 feet tall, it weighs 3 tons, and it has a 6-foot on the bottom. And German President Joachim Gauck presented it to Secretary Kerry. Well, it's so big that it couldn't possibly fit in the museum once we were done constructing it. So we had to pause construction and get a giant crane to lift it up over the highest roof beam and down into the bottom of the lower level, which is 1 level below ground. I look at our artifacts. We have over 6,400 in our collection right now, and I'm inspired because we are the only institution in the world that we know of that's collecting diplomacy.
An artifact has to have that story. The blindfold that was actually worn by one of the hostages in Iran. You know, people say, what is that? And then you open it up, and that's what you do, is you tell the whole story. And sometimes we've had some of the actual hostages actually there by the exhibit and say, well, you know, this exhibit does a pretty good job, but, you know, I'll tell you what it was really like to be a hostage for 444 days.
We are a museum. We're telling the story. We're not in any way making policy or advocating policy. And I think that's a line that we must and are very clearly respecting, because different administrations come in and out of the White House. And some of our diplomacy, if you think about the Middle East peace process, can go on for years and years and years. And we have to tell that story in a nonpartisan manner.